Hi, welcome to Lecture 6, covering Chapter 6 of Focus on Personal Finance. Tonight we will be looking at consumer purchasing strategies and wise buying of motor vehicles. Man, do I love to shop. I love to shop the sales. I love to shop for a new car. I just love to shop. What I don't love is coming home and finding out that sometimes the purchasing decisions that I've made were not in alignment with the money that I had budgeted for those. While making consumer purchases might not be considered in most financial plans, these choices certainly affect our financial resources and the money that's available for other purposes like our savings and those future financial plans that we've made. This chapter starts with a discussion of various purchasing strategies. It covers a systematic approach to buying a motor vehicle or other major purchases. And then it concludes with a discussion on consumer protection action and legal alternatives to individuals. Let's review our learning objectives for this chapter. The first one is to identify strategies for effective consumer buying. So the timing of our purchases, comparing stores and brands, and using label information, computing unit prices, and evaluating warranties are all common strategies to make sure that we are having effective purchasing strategies in place. Our objective number 2 is to implement a process for making consumer purchases. A research-based approach to consumer buying involves 3 things. The first one is pre-shopping activities such as problem identification and information gathering. The second step is evaluating alternatives. The third one is determining the purchase price and post-purchase activities. Our objective number 3 is to describe steps to take to resolve consumer problems. So most consumer problems can be resolved by returning to the place of purchase, or contacting the company's main office, or obtaining assistance from a consumer agency, or taking legal action, which I hope you won't have to do. Objective number 4 is to evaluate legal alternatives available to customers. So once your dissatisfaction and your inability to resolve an issue has gone this far, there's a small claims court, there's class action lawsuits, there's services of lawyers, legal aid societies, and prepaid legal services that you can use for handling consumer problems that you were unable to resolve through communication with the company. We'll take a look at some of those tonight as well. So learning objective number 1, identify strategies for effective consumer buying. So your daily buying habits are affected by a wide variety of economic, social, and personal factors. Your long-term financial situation will be more stable if you do not spend your entire current income. So every time you get paid, if you don't spend everything that you make, but you put some of that money back into savings. And as we've talked about in our last lesson, overspending leads to the misuse of credit. Let's look at some practical purchasing strategies. So comparison shopping is the process of considering alternative stores, brands, and prices. In contrast, impulse buying is unplanned purchasing. While some impulse buying may be acceptable, too much can cause financial problems. Let's look at some shopping techniques that should be considered for various purchasing situations. So one strategy is the timing of your purchase. So there are things that go on sale at certain times of the year. Sometimes people save by buying holiday items and other products that are reduced in late December or early January when the retail sales are on, and then once Christmas items are no longer needed, or winter items, things usually get marked down. You can also get bargains by buying summer clothes at the end of summer, as well as lawn furniture. A lot of times you can find things on sale at the end of the summer, so that would be timing your purchases so that you can get the best price for those items. A second strategy is your purchase location. I love to shop at Ala Moana Mall, but I know that when I go there, I'm probably not going to find the better prices. Well, if I will go to a discount store like TJ Maxx or Ross that's off of the beaten path a little bit, I can get better prices on items. A third strategy is brand comparison. So a private label versus a store brand versus a national brand. All of these have different prices. Of course, it also depends on what your personal preferences are, what you're looking for in an item, and how you feel about the quality of each one of these things. And finally, label information. Federal law governs what items need to be on the label of food purchases, and open dating tells consumers about the freshness of the shelf life of anything that's perishable. Strategy is price comparison. You can look at the unit pricing, what is the standard unit of measure, and compare that to the prices of packages of different sizes. That'll tell you how much you're paying per unit of measure rather than just this item compared to this item. You can always use coupons and rebates. Remember that if you're purchasing from a more convenient store, you're going to pay a higher price. Also, if you are purchasing items that are ready to use, you're going to pay a higher price. I do a lot of shopping online because I find that's a really great way to do comparison shopping. I can open up my browser and look at several different items at one time and compare them side by side as to what they're offering, and then I can make the best determination of what's cheapest. A warranty is a written guarantee from a manufacturer or a distributor that specifies the condition under which the product can be returned, replaced, or repaired. Anytime that you're spending very much money on an item, especially like an electrical appliance, it's always good to look at the warranties that are being offered. An express warranty is usually in writing, and it is created by the seller or the manufacturer and can be for a full or a limited warranty, where an implied warranty is the result of the product's intended use or other suggested understandings that are not in writing. One of the larger purchases that you will make, that you will certainly want to know what the warranty is on, is whenever you purchase a car, whether it's a used car or a new car. If you are purchasing a used car from a vendor, the Federal Trade Commission requires that business to have a buyer's sticker guide. These are usually in the window of the car whenever you go to look at cars that are on a lot. And this disclosure must state if the car comes with a warranty or if it is not covered by a warranty, and if it is, what are the specific items that are covered. I think if you go shopping for used cars, you're going to find that not a lot of them have warranties, but while they may not have an express warranty or something in writing, most states have implied warranties that protect you whenever you purchase a used car from a company. New cars come with warranties, and you're going to find that these are given to you in writing. These warranties often vary in terms of time and mileage, so a lot of times you hear that this is covered either like for the first 7 years or 70,000 miles. So then you know that whichever comes first, that's when that warranty ends. Since most people put about 15,000 miles a year on their car, chances of you actually being covered for 7 years are pretty slim unless you don't drive your car a whole lot. Whether you purchase a new car or a used car, the dealership may give you the opportunity to purchase a service contract, and a service contract is an agreement between the business or the service and you to cover repairs of costs on your vehicle. It's worth noting that if you purchase an extended warranty, it's not actually a warranty. It's actually being purchased at a fee, and it insures the buyer against losses due to the cost of certain repairs. Objective number 2 is to implement a process for making consumer purchases. A specific decision-making process can help you to make effective decisions, especially when you're making major purchases like a car. So this example on this PowerPoint slide is actually in your book on page 195, and it takes you through the steps for buying a car. You might want to pull that up and use that as a guide because we're going to walk through these steps quickly. Using purchasing a motor vehicle as your major purchasing decision, we'll talk about going to a car dealership. Of course, anytime you're making any major purchasing decision, these steps would follow. But let's use the car as an example. So before you head to the car dealership, the first thing that you need to do is to start with a planned course of action. Define your shopping problem in terms of a broad perspective. What is it that you're trying to do? You need to buy a reliable car. What is your budget? What are your thoughts about brands, about big car, small car, what year car? Do you know what you're wanting? Standard transmission, automatic transmission. Your information that you research and decide on is power to you. The better informed you are before you head out the door, the more likely you are going to make the best purchasing choice. In your information gathering phase, you can do lots of different things. You can talk to family and friends. Personal recommendations are a wonderful way to help you hone in on decisions. There are lots of business organizations. Of course, there are always advertising that can help to give you information that you would need to know. There's independent testing organizations such like the Consumer Union or Underwriter Laboratories, and then always, online, lots of opportunities there. Be sure and look at the source of the recommendations. Don't just read the ratings or the review and swallow that hook, line, and sinker. Look to see where that's coming from and how many people have made the recommendations, and compare the positive comments with the negative comments. Phase 2 is evaluating your alternatives. So each alternative needs to be evaluated on the basis of factors such as your own personal values and goals, how much money you have available and how much time, the costs of each alternative, the benefits of each alternative, what are your needs with regard to product size, quality, quantity, and features. What attributes are important to you? Evaluating your alternatives, you might want to consider such things as engine size, whether or not you want power steering, cruise control, anti-lock brakes. Then how much comfort are you willing to pay for? Did you want air conditioning and power seats? Then there's always those aesthetic features. Did you want a sunroof? Is the leather interior important to you? What kind of paint job do you want on the car? All of these choices are part of evaluating your alternatives. At your used car options, you may decide that you want to consider a new car in your alternatives. Places that you can look for a car would be a new car dealership, which will have new and used cars, a used car dealership, which will just have used cars, private sale from an individual. There are auctions. There's places like CarMax, and then there are certified pre-owned vehicles. So with a new car, you're going to be able to buy a later model vehicle. You're probably going to get a warranty, but you're also probably going to pay a much higher price than you would if you bought a used car. Used car dealers usually have older vehicles. Sometimes a warranty is offered, but be careful and make sure that you know what you're getting, because a lot of times it's very limited. If you buy a used car from an individual, you are going to get a better price than you're going to get at a used car dealership. However, you're not going to get any kind of warranty. You need to make sure that the owner has really good copies of all of the maintenance that they've performed. And because there isn't any type of consumer protection on these purchases, you need to be very careful about private party sales. With auctions, sometimes you can get a pretty good deal, but you need to know what you're buying. A lot of times car rental companies, they have that point each year that they offload their cars that have been in their inventory as long as they want. They're replacing them with new cars to be rented out, and so they're selling their older cars. And if you do your research, make sure that you go and look at the car and learn as much as you can about it before the auction, because you can get a really good price on a car that way. Pre-certified, pre-owned cars You hear this out sometimes in advertisements for Lexus, but there are nearly new cars that come with an original manufacturer's guarantee of quality. So even though they've been driven by someone who most likely leased the car, they have been repaired, refurbished, refreshed, and then they're being sold as being certified. But you will pay a little bit higher price for this car than other used cars because of the warranty that it comes with. So in addition to this list of places that we just went over where you could buy a car, you might also want to consider the advantages and disadvantages of leasing a car. Now, leasing a car is not the right choice for everyone. It really fits a specific type of individual, but it is worth going over, especially because a lot of times people get sucked into the idea of leasing, and it may not be the best choice for them. So leasing is actually a contractual agreement that has monthly payments that are due, just like if you had purchased a vehicle, and it is over a set period of time. One of the advantages is that normally it's a lower amount, so you're not paying quite as much monthly as you would as if you were buying a car outright. So that might help you to be able to obtain a more expensive vehicle than what you had originally planned to purchase. The disadvantage is that there's absolutely no ownership interest in the vehicle whatsoever. You have to meet certain criteria, just like if you were purchasing the vehicle. And a lot of times there are added items that are added on to the contract that you really need to make sure you know what they are. Because when you turn in the car, like I said, the average number of miles a year is 15,000. And the contract that you have may say that you only get 10,000 a year, and anything that you drive over that, you pay 50 cents a mile for. And you don't want to be surprised whenever you turn in the car to find out that you owe a huge amount for the extra miles that you put on the vehicle. It also depends on what types of repairs the lease covers, whether or not you can turn the car in early or you have to keep it for a certain amount of time. So you need to know all of these things before you choose to lease a vehicle. 3 is determining the purchase price. Negotiation, some people love to do this and some people really hate it. But when purchasing a new or a used car, negotiation is usually part of the process. Before you start your negotiation, you need to make sure you've done your homework and that you have all of the necessary information so that you know how to make the best negotiating effort. As you start the negotiation process, make sure that you're dealing with the person who actually has the authority to give you a lower price or to throw in additional features that might sweeten your deal and make it more affordable for you. And you never know on negotiations unless you ask. So I know right now we're talking about used cars or purchasing a vehicle, but even whenever you go to purchase a washer or a dryer and you're at Sears or a store like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the item is not on sale that you have to pay the sticker price. So sometimes asking to speak to the manager and trying to negotiate, especially if you've done your homework and you know what prices are elsewhere, you can often get a discount. And the bottom line is that you never know unless you ask. Now, if you are purchasing a used car, some places that you can get information about what the price should be on a used car is either through Edmunds or through Kelley Blue Book. Both of those you can find online, and they will tell you what the price of the vehicle is based on a number of qualifying factors such as the year, how many miles are on the car, what kind of features it has, those kinds of things. Negotiating for a new car, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Now, every new car has a sticker price that's stuck in the window, and what that is actually the suggested retail price of a new car and the optional equipment. Just like when you're negotiating for a used car, you're going to be at a better advantage point if you know what the dealer's cost is of that vehicle. So a couple different places that you can look for that for a new car is Consumer Reports or Edmunds. You can also do some comparison shopping with other vendors in the area, car dealerships in the area, or even going online. A lot of times car dealerships will list the price of a vehicle that they have for sale. And I know the last time that we bought a new car, that's exactly what we did. We went online, we found, we were in the mainland, and we found a car that was for sale that was not very far away. It was a few hour drive away. That was very comparable to the one we were looking at in our town where we lived. And so we were able to use that car and that car price to help get down the price of the new car that we really wanted that was in the same town where we were. So your goal, of course, is to get the best price possible. And those are a couple of ways to try to figure out the cost of the car and where you need to come in on what the price of a new car would be. If you can find out what the actual cost is to the dealership, not the sticker price, but what they actually paid for the vehicle, then offering a few $100s more than the dealer's cost is going to put you in a pretty good position to start your negotiations. And the last item on this slide is actually really important. Before you start your negotiations, if you're going to trade in a vehicle toward the cost of the new car, don't tell them that until after you've already settled on the price of the car. Now, they're going to try really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen, but you just need to let them try to sidestep that issue, because what they might do, what car dealerships are known to do, is to tell you that they're paying you more for the trade-in than what they really want to pay, so that it looks like you're getting the new car for less than what you're getting it for. What you want is to get the rock bottom price on the new car first, and then find out what they would give you if you trade in your vehicle. Then you're going to get a true number for that. Also, until the price of the car is settled, don't talk about dealer financing. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but those guys who work in those car dealerships make money by getting you into financing on the vehicle. And so, once again, that can be a way that they can play with the numbers and make it look like you're getting a really good deal, when in fact they're just making it look like they're giving you more than they're giving you, and they're going to make up the difference in the financing deal. So a couple other sales techniques that you want to avoid is if somebody's trying to lowball you. So lowballing occurs when a new car buyer is quoted a very low price, but then add-on costs increase the price of the car before your deal is concluded. There's also a thing called a low-cost leader, and I don't think this is covered in your book, but I wanted to mention this to you. They might advertise a car at a really low price, but then once you get in the door, they tell you all the reasons why you don't want that car, but that you want another car that's at a higher price. They'll downplay that car. Oh, that's something wrong with the transmission, that doesn't have good reviews or whatever. So they advertise it at a really low price. You think, oh, what a great deal. I'll go look at that car. And then when they get in there, they really do everything they can to keep from selling you that car and try to upsell you into a different vehicle. So highballing occurs when a new car buyer is offered a very high price for a trade-in vehicle with an extra amount made by increasing the price of the new car. So that's basically what we just talked about in the previous slide. Other questions that you do not want to answer that the salesman asks you is, how much can you afford per month? Because then they're going to look at the monthly payment rather than what you're actually paying for the car. And like if you say, well, I can spend $400 a month on a car, then they're going to try to sell you at $400 a month rather than getting into the very best deal that you can for that vehicle. Never leave a deposit on a car until you are absolutely sure that that's the car you are ready to buy. Never believe a salesman when he tells you that the price he's giving you is only $100 above their cost. And hopefully you'll know that because you've done your homework and you know the ballpark of what their cost actually is. Part of your purchasing decision is to secure your financing. And there's lots of different financial resources that are available to you. You can get financing through the car dealership, which I just talked about, and I highly recommend that you price shop. I'm not saying that it's never the right thing to go with the dealership's financing, but you certainly need to know what you're getting, and you need to have done your homework and compared that to other things that are available through banks, credit unions. You know, I'm a big fan of credit unions, other financial institutions or companies. Getting pre-approved can help you to move this process along more quickly. If you know about what you want to spend on a car, you can go ahead and make some inquiries and get pre-approved for that loan. Make sure that you are comparing apples to apples by looking at what the annual percentage rate is, and we covered that last week. And then finally, phase number 4, your post-purchase activities. So you've spent a lot of money on this vehicle, whether you've chosen a new vehicle or a used vehicle. This is most likely a major purchase for you. And even though you've just spent this huge amount of money, you have more money that you need to spend, and that is on maintenance. When you are preparing your budget for the amount that your car payment will be and making room for that, you need to make sure that you also have room in there for any maintenance costs to keep that vehicle in good working order. Costs that are associated with your vehicle, some of those are fixed and some of those are variable. Your driving costs will depend on two main factors. One is the size of your automobile and the other is the number of miles that you drive. The largest fixed expense is associated with depreciation. That is the loss of the vehicle's value due to time and use. And you most likely will not be able to sell the vehicle that you purchased for what you bought it for, especially if you bought a new car. So the vehicle is going to be worth less as you put more miles on it and more years turn over, and that's depreciation. Another fixed ownership cost is the charge for interest on the financing for the automobile, unless of course you paid cash for it. There's insurance, license, registration, fees, taxes. Am I running your high from the new vehicle that you just bought? And then there are those variable costs, which will depend on how many miles that you're driving your car, but you've got to put gas in it, you've got to keep oil in it, you've got to have tires, buy new ones periodically, make sure that you're paying to have those rotated whenever you're getting your oil changed. You'll have different maintenance, repairs, parking expenses, all of those fun expenses. Who sell, repair, and drive automobiles for a living state that regular vehicle care is one of your best investments on your purchase. The systems of your car that should be monitored and maintained on a regular basis are your engine, your cooling system, transmission, brakes, steering mechanism, your exhaust components, and your suspension. You'll probably get an owner's manual with your vehicle. If you buy a new one, you certainly will. And it should tell you the recommendations of when you need to do things. If you don't get an owner's manual, you should be able to find one online. There's lots of different places where you can get this maintenance done on your vehicle. The first is the service department of the car dealership where you purchase the car. Normally their prices are a little bit higher, so it may be easier to get your car in. And if you have a new car, sometimes they give you a loaner to drive while your car is being serviced, which makes that very attractive, but normally their prices are higher. Local gas stations often provide convenient and reasonable prices for most repairs and maintenance. There are independent repair shops that you can use. There are mass merchandising retail shops like muffler and tire stores, Firestone, Goodyear, those types of stores. There are specialty shops, and then there are some individuals who just repair cars for people and have a small business in their home or just a small business down the road. So these are all different choices. The book also says that many individuals can avoid repair problems by just doing their own work. But I have found that more and more that is more difficult because cars are becoming more and more computerized, so it's much harder to do that yourself. It's probably also a good place to mention that if you plan to buy a high-end car like a Lexus, an Infiniti, a BMW, a Jaguar, an Audi, a Mercedes, and you're going to buy that used, and so you're going to buy a nicer car, but you're going to buy it used so that you can have a nicer car, a higher-end car, be sure and check the repairs and maintenance first, what the cost of those are, because high-end cars, their repairs and their maintenance, and even like an oil change, can run up to, I hate to say this, but 4 or 5 times the price of that on an American-made car. So I know that my son wanted a high-end car for one of his first vehicles, and whenever we said before you do that, stop and price an oil change and some of the other maintenance items compared to an American car or even like a Toyota, and he was absolutely floored at the price difference and decided to go with a different vehicle. Not because those are not awesome cars, because they most certainly are, but because repairs and maintenance can be really high on those types of vehicles. Objective number 3 is to describe steps to take to resolve consumer complaints. So every business transaction is a potential problem. Most customer difficulties are the result of defective products, low quality, short product lives, it didn't last as long as you thought it was going to be, there were unexpected costs included, or the repairs that were made were just poor. So you will never probably be completely satisfied with every purchase that you ever make. So let's just look real quickly at what the process is for resolving differences on items that you have purchased. So the very first thing that you need to do is the initial communication. You need to talk with whoever it was that sold this item to you. You need to be calm and rational and just let them know what it is about the product that didn't meet your expectation. If that doesn't work, then you move to step 2, which is to communicate with the company. So maybe that's the store, the manager of the store that sold it to you, or to the manager of the store that produces the item. If you're still unable to get satisfaction with the situation with the item that you've purchased, it's probably time to look at consumer agency assistance. So there are different places that you can look at, such as the Better Business Bureau. You can file a claim with them. You can do that online. There is mediation, and mediation is involvement of an impartial third party who tries to resolve the difference between you and the business through discussion and negotiation. Or there's arbitration, and it is arbitration is binding, so it's a settlement of a difference by a third party, the arbitrator, whose decision is made, and then you're legally bound to it. So if you agree to arbitration, whatever the arbitrator says is what ends up happening. Then, of course, there are state consumer protection offices and agencies. Finally, step number 4, if you still have not been able to find satisfaction, you can take legal action. So many states, local and federal government agencies are available to assist consumers, which takes us to our learning objective number 4, which is how to evaluate legal alternatives available to you as a consumer. So if all of the things we've talked about earlier, steps 1 through 3, do not bring satisfaction, then you can take your customer complaint and take legal action against who sold this item to you. You can begin by going to small claims court. In a small claims court, a person can file a claim for legal matters involving amounts under a certain set amount, so you'll need to find out what that amount is in your state. To make the best use of a small claims court, you need to become familiar with the procedures where you will go for that court, and then also be aware that they're going to charge you a fee for filing, and that fee can be any place between $5 and $50. You will represent yourself in a small claims court, so when you do that, make sure that you are polite, calm, and concise in what you have to say. You need to have evidence to support the claims that you're making. And if you have a witness, make sure that you have that person with you so that they can testify on your behalf. Another legal option is a class action lawsuit, and that's where you actually get together with other individuals who've had the same experience and feel that they have also had the same issues with that product. So an example of this is a recent class action included automobile owners who were sold unneeded replacement parts for repairs on their vehicles, and so they got together and sued the brokerage company for unauthorized transactions resulting in high commission charges. I messed up my notes here. I got my finger in the wrong place. There was actually 2 separate class action suits. See if you were actually paying attention right. So one was automobile owners who got together and sued for replacement parts that were put on their vehicle that they were charged for that weren't needed. And then the second recent example that I had for you was a group of investors who sued a brokerage company because they charged them high commission charges. So sorry about that. You may decide that you need a lawyer. Sometimes that's a difficult decision to make. Lawyers are expensive, and you need to evaluate what you hope to gain against what you'll be paying for a lawyer, whether or not you win the suit. Rather than hiring a lawyer, there are some other alternatives, such as a legal aid society. A legal aid society is a network of publicly supported community law offices that provide legal assistance to consumers who otherwise can't afford an attorney. Or sometimes there are prepaid legal services. A lot of times these are offered as a benefit to a job, or you can buy this as a type of insurance. So we'll end our discussion with this last slide, and we're going to look at some tips on how to protect yourself as a consumer. So consumer protection experts suggest that to prevent being taken by a deceptive business practice, there are some things that you can do, and the first is to only do business with reputable companies. So once again, talking to people that you know, looking for online resources will help you to determine which companies that you want to do business with because they have a good reputation. Avoid signing contracts that you do not understand, or if you don't think that a contract is needed, because if you sign the contract, you are bound by that whether or not you understood it at the time that you signed it. This is number 3 is a rule of thumb I try to live by. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So rather than getting really excited and moving forward too quickly about something, you need to slow down, take your time, and really look at what the item is that you're purchasing. Number 4 goes with our lesson of last week. Compare the cost of using credit with the cost of just paying cash, and be sure to watch your impulse buying. Avoid rushing into a good deal or whenever you finally found that item that you've been looking for and then you rush out to buy it. So here is a personal example, and we'll end with this. I wanted a Maltese, and we were out driving around one day, and in the town where we used to live, it was not uncommon for somebody who had dogs for sale to put up a pen on the corner of 2 streets and just put up a sign of what they were doing. And here was a pen of beautiful Maltese puppies, and we stopped and played with one, and I absolutely just fell in love with this one little puppy, and I just had to have him. And he was a registered puppy, so don't think poorly of me, but I think he was $500. Well, I didn't have that much cash on me, so in my excitement and my impulse to grab this dog that I'd been wanting, I just told the guy, here's $200 cash. I'm going to go to the bank and get the other $300, and I'll be back to take the puppy. And then I ran to the bank and grabbed the money. And when we were driving back, my husband looked at me and he said, do you realize what you just did? And I'm like, I just bought a dog. And he goes, you just gave $200 to a man on a corner of a street. You get paid it in cash. You did not get a receipt. You don't know his name. He doesn't know your name. You did not mark that dog in any way, shape, or form. You do not know when you get back whether or not that dog will be there, whether he'll trade you and give you a different dog. And I had to stop and think, he's right. That was impulse buying at its height. Fortunately, the story has a good ending because he was an honest man and he was there when I got back. He gave me a receipt, gave me the dog that I had chosen, and it all worked out. But in that moment of vulnerability, I realized what a poor decision I'd made. And it was all on that impulse buy and the excitement and the adrenaline rush of finding what I had been looking for and been wanting for a long time. So it can happen to any of us, even those of us who try to make the best plans in our buying choices. So I hope you've enjoyed this chapter and learned something. Just as a reminder, the full deck of PowerPoint slides are posted for your studying and to help you as you read through the chapter to have a better understanding of what you're reading. And there's also just a few supplemental videos that you might want to review, and those are posted for you as well. As always, I'm available. My information is on the syllabus, and until next week.